Welcome back to Practical Parenting, the podcast that helps empower parents in the trenches find joy in the process and thrive through it all. I'm Christina Wales, here with my co-host, Dr. Terry Nguyen, Chair of Pediatrics at GBMC Healthcare. So, you're the worst mom. You never do anything nice for me. I hate you. All of us parents have heard these phrases or some version of them at some point in our parenting journey. And if you haven't, don't worry, it's coming. The good news is you'll be prepared with a response thanks to Dr. Terry. That's what we're going to talk about today. So when your child says, I hate you, it's so easy to internalize that sentiment, take it to heart, feel like you are the worst parent because you're not doing XYZ that they're requesting. But the key is to be able to distance ourselves from what they said and get to the want behind the words. So, Dr. Terry, take us to this moment. We're all about the meditation. We usually go to a happier place, but take us to this place. Yeah. Your kid just said, I hate you. What do you do first?
Step back. Really. You're absolutely right, Christina. Step back. Take a few moments. It was, there was something behind that. And it's not meant for you intentionally to hurt your feelings. It was emotional dysregulation. I didn't get what I wanted, or there's something deeper, and all I can express is this is how I'm going to express I'm upset, right? So the first thing is you can't calm anybody else until you've calmed yourself. So stay calm and carry on, right? One of our favorite phrases. And just take a few moments to pause and say, okay, you know that your child doesn't hate you, right? So what could possibly be behind the words? Okay, so separate yourself from your emotional reaction to this, because we all get dragged in. I got dragged in forever, okay? And then, so get curious. Why are they saying that? Did you ignore your son or daughter? Did they just wanted a few minutes of your time and you're like, just give me a few more minutes, and you did that couple of minutes, so times 10 maybe? Or those couple of minutes are now half an hour, so they're losing their mind, right? So maybe you just came home from work and it was a really stressful day. I don't know. Are there any days not stressful
Right.
when you're rushing home from work and realizing that you have to kind of get the kids together, get dinner on the table, and but let's say you're even running behind tonight, right? And you're scurrying and you're out of sorts. And then your child, is really excited about sharing something with you because, this is the first time that they've seen you. And you unintentionally put them off, like, Mom just needs to do this. Can you go away? And they're like, what? I wanted to share with you something really great. You just told me to go away. I hate you. And it's not that I hate you, but, why don't you love me, Or why can't I have your attention right now? They go off into their room and maybe they slam the door if they're pre-pubertal or pubertal. And now everybody's a hot mess, right? You realize that you set things off, your kid reacted to you, and then you're about to react to that too. Like, damn it, I am so tired. Da-da-da-da. So that can be, that could have been the set off. Or sometimes you slave over a dinner and you sit down and they say, what's this?
This is disgusting.
This is disgusting. I hate this food. And you were like, I tried something new. And you could get all riled up and worked into it with them again. But let's stay calm and carry on. It's not intended for you. It's their limited vocabulary about their emotions and their feelings, right? And until kids really develop a range of emotions, it's happy, very unhappy, right? So when they're happy, it's like, woohoo, better than anything imaginable. It's unicorns and rainbows. If it's bad, it is the worst thing in the whole wide world, and their world is going to end, and they hate you, and everything's bad. So, but we don't live on just those two extremes. But if that's all they have in their vocabulary, right, yes, that's what comes out. So take a few moments for yourself. Find out what is really at the root of this. When you've calmed yourself down and your child has calmed him or herself down, then you can use this opportunity. It's a learning moment. It's a teaching moment, right? First off, please apologize. I don't remember my parents apologizing very much at all.
No.
And I think that is one of the best things you can do as a parent is to be accountable. You cannot always be perfect, and you are not perfect because you wouldn't be alive if you were perfect. This is what I think. So, be vulnerable. Show your child how to undo a mistake, right? How do you work yourself out of there? And how do you regain their comfort with you? And how do they move on from this outburst that you both had together? Okay. So apologize. And when I say apologize, I mean a true apology. Not, well, I'm sorry. If only you hadn't. That's not an apology. That's a conditional apology, right? Or I'm sorry, but my day was hard. No, you're just sorry.
There's no blame, no shame, no excuse.
Right.
Yeah.
I am sorry that this happened, okay? And maybe you can put into words what your emotions are about it, okay? I feel really badly that I behaved that way. I would not want it to come across this way. I'm sorry that you took it, whatever, okay? But that's it. Don't put the child back into the story because you said this and that's why I said that, right? And then let them process it and ask, and say, so can we go on? How can I make this better for you? Aren't those nice, comforting words there? And I love you. And I'll always love you, even if we have a disagreement, or even if you get angry with me, or if I get angry with you. You'll be unconditionally loved no matter what happens, because we all have our moments, because we're all human. So you've then showed your child that you took accountability for your mess up or mistake or failure. You're showing them what being human is, right? And you're also modeling how to apologize unconditionally and how to move forward from it. That's the really important part, right? Because, or else if there's no apology, then somebody, if not both people, are still holding onto some anger or resentment. And this is the part. This is going to save your child a lot of therapy in the future, okay? This is how negative self-talk sets in. It's because I'm a really bad person. I made my mom really mad. She hates me now, and I said mean words to her. I'm not a good human being. I must be bad. Okay? And if this cycle continues happening every time there's a blip on the radar, and that could be daily or weekly, right? It builds up over time. And so where do you think that negative self-talk comes from? It's from modeling, like, oh, there I did it again. I set mom or dad off. I'm just not good at this. I always make them angry. But, they forget that, it's the end of the day. They don't have any more, reserve, emotional reserve, and neither do you, right? So
it probably comes from not only not apologizing in a way that's effective, but also leaving them alone in the feelings to interpret for themselves, because that's, and I know so much of what you're saying is bringing up, I know anybody that's listened to this podcast or knows me in real life knows I'm a Dr. Becky fanatic. Her Good Inside approach, I feel like, has helped me so much in parenting. And that's so much about what we're talking about, I feel like, today is, that they internalize that message that they're bad or they've done something wrong and it's their fault that this is what's happening. And if we don't, go back and talk to them about it and work through it with them, then they are left to interpret that on their own.
For sure. And then ask them, validate their feelings. How did you feel, or what are you thinking? Open-ended, let them do the talking, and you zip up. And then you can either help them with some wording that they might have, and so that maybe in the future, if they don't like something, it won't be, I hate you, or you're the world's worst mom, but maybe they could say, I really didn't want to do that. I just wanted a few minutes of your time. I wanted to share something fun with you. Or I just didn't feel like eating that tonight. You know?
I was just going to say, I feel like some parents listening to this are going to feel like by taking ownership when they say something mean that we're letting them get away with it, quote unquote, like this, negative talk and disrespectful behavior or phrasing, however you want to refer to it. But I think this is where, again, another of Dr. Becky's words comes into my mind, is that most generous interpretation. I use this all the time with my kids. I also use it with adults that I interact with because it's such an effective strategy. And it's basically looking at your child, and what we would call the least generous interpretation is usually the one that our mind goes to first, is your child saying, I hate you, or you never do anything nice to me, because they're disrespectful and they don't appreciate you, and, things like that. But really the most generous interpretation, if you can get yourself to that place, then you enter into a conversation with your child with so much more generosity than you would. I'm thinking about the fact that mornings have been really rough with my oldest recently getting out the door. It's just one of those things where we get up with plenty of time seemingly to get the very little tasks that we need to get done accomplished before we need to leave the house, but somehow we save them all for the last 5 minutes before we need to leave. And no matter how many times we say, hi, we only have 15 minutes, we only have 10 minutes, we only have 5 minutes, can we do this first and then play? It doesn't seem to be getting through. And I get frustrated every morning. And I just started taking a breath and just saying, what's the barrier here for you? What's holding you back from doing the things we need to talk about? What is not clicking for you, on this? Because something's preventing you from being able to do the things you need to do. And if it's you want to play, I'm tired, which is what came out today, and then we can get to the solution. But if we just keep focusing on the behavior and correcting the behavior, we're not actually getting to the root of the problem. We're just focusing on the moment and getting through the moment, and then the same thing happens again because we haven't really addressed the underlying issue.
Exactly. I mean, you are spot on. You're still butting heads. And as you were saying it, I was like, okay, you need to break the cycle. We're not going to keep butting heads, and what you have been doing isn't working in this situation. You can brainstorm with your child. I notice that it's hard for you to get going in the morning. What do you think that's about? How can I help you? How can we plan this together so that mornings aren't so hard? They're still going to be hard, okay? Because mornings, honestly, I think only surgeons like mornings, okay? But the rest of us really don't.
Because honestly, as much as I don't want to keep reminding her and bothering her about how much she needs to get ready or how little time she has, and it's also not an effective strategy, it also angers her. Yeah. Because then she says to me, why are you keep saying that? Why do you tell me this many times? And my first inclination is to be like, because you're not listening or you're not following the direction. But that's not the issue. She hears me and then ignores it. But it's not because she's being disrespectful or she doesn't want to do it. There's something there that we haven't gotten to yet. And we need to now, 5 minutes before we have to leave for school, probably not the time to dig into that. But we can afterwards and figure out, a strategy to move us past.
And involve your child. Anytime you want to fix or make amends on a situation with your child, please include them. When you're the dictator and you're like, well, this didn't work, so we're doing this. How many times did you really like that dictation from your parent? Yeah. When they were, being dictatorial? Never. And how often did you listen to it? Never. And the other thing is, one of the things that I heard from what you were saying is like, you keep reminding them every, 5 minutes how much more time you have. Yeah, you're right. That would only make them more irritable, right? And remember, if we keep saying certain things over and over, our children block us out. It's like Charlie Brown. I hope people still know who Charlie Brown and the Peanuts gang are. But if you remember in Charlie Brown, every time an adult spoke, all you heard was, wah, 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 wah. And I really think our children hear that if we repeat certain phrases over and over. And sometimes silence is what is heard best, And so you're going to have to work through that with your oldest. But I love it that you're like, okay, it's not working. I'm going to step back. We're not going to just redo this episode every day. So I'll give you a solid thing. So my daughter did say, I hate you, mommy, every time she didn't get what she wanted. And I wasn't clever enough when she was 3 years old, okay, to realize that there was a want, a need, something that was being unmet beneath that. All I thought was, you are being such a meanie. And then I would get all huffy and puffy, right? And I don't know, it took a while, but it dawned on me, why is she doing that? Because she knows I'm still going to love her. She can say mean things to me, but I'm still going to love her unconditionally. And maybe she had a rough day. Maybe she, things aren't, and she can't express it. She's 3, right? She's used all of her good behavior at school. So, yeah, you're going to have a meltdown where it's safe.
Mm-hmm.
So what if you took the interpretation that it means that, and I said this to my daughter, oh, every time I hear that, Emily, I think you're saying, I love you, Mom. Served 2 purposes, okay? It diffused her because she was like, oh, my God. Where'd that come from? And it made sense, like I wasn't pushing. So she was pushing and I was like pushing back, right? And this diffused it. It was humor. It was like totally like unexpected, but it really was the best interpretation, the kinder interpretation that you are your child's safe place,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they can do or say anything and you would still love them. Because I think even parents of people who've done terrible things still love them, right? How can you not? This is your child. So if you take that path instead of saying that they're being obnoxious, mean, or just spoiled, then you go, oh, I get it. You have something else. There's a need there that I should help you with.
Mm-hmm.
And let's find out what that is instead of like digging in deeper and getting engaged with them and spiraling together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you want to build your relationship with your child when they're younger, and then you want to be able to maintain that relationship when they're in adolescence because they're going to separate from you.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this critical period that you really want to kind of build a good foundation that, yeah, life happens, things happen, but we can always come back together,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Because in their adolescent years, they may think it's irreparable, not doing it. But if they had a foundation somewhere, where it was, I know my parents love me, support me through anything and everything, they know that it'll pass. And that's how you are able to transition into an adult relationship with your children as young adults, that they know that you've got their back. They know that they always can return to the safety of you and family, right? So, and if they have negative things happen to them as adults, they can also sort it out and not just turn that focus on themselves, turn it in on themselves, like, okay, this happened because I was a bad person. This happened because I'm incompetent. This happened. I mean, that's devastating over time. But inadvertently, okay, if you let your children stew in their own perceptions of what's gone on and you haven't helped them process, that's what happens in the long run. So it's decades of, you do something wrong to somebody, you make them mad, nobody talks about it, and it just sits, and it's really heavy on your heart and heavy on your head too, right?
Well, if you imagine your child in an adult relationship and, that their partner says something mean to them or snaps at them, you would not want your child as an adult thinking to themselves, oh, what did I do wrong? What did I say that set this person off? Which is kind of the talk that you're breeding that thought in their mind.
Yeah.
when they're young. You want them to be able to say, oh, wow, what's going on for them that they're having this reaction or whatever, and look at it holistically rather than blaming themselves.
Yeah. Step out of your head. It's not all about you.
Yeah.
It's actually usually about the person that had that moment.
98%,
right?
I would say.
So, yeah, but what do we all do? What did I do?
Right.
What did I do to deserve that? Oh, have I said that about when she said, I hate you? Yes, I have. Okay. But, yes, if you can step, and I love that you have choices. You can take the positive perception of this or the negative perception. And you're going to have to rewire your brain if, the way you were raised, the automatic snap-on was the negative interpretation of a situation. And, I'm not putting it on anyone. I mean, I think that's the way it's happened for a long time for many people.
Definitely.
And so it's generational and it just keeps going. But we can alter that is what I'm saying, right?
Absolutely.
And, taking accountability for your actions, modeling, apologizing without blame, and allowing the space for your child to ask of you what they want or need. Okay, that's going to save like tons of money in therapy in the future.
I definitely think that's a big piece of it is, the first is addressing the want behind the words, as we talked about, but then also giving them the phrasing for what they can do next time to ask for the time that they need, or like you said, work together. If the issue is, they want your attention right when you get home, like talk to them about the fact that maybe you need 5 minutes or whatever the case may be. And then, maybe then they come to you and say, I know Mom usually like 5 minutes, but I really want to show you something. Yeah. And if your kid came to you that way, you'd be much more apt to say, you know what, go ahead and show me it now, rather than if it was, how it's been progressing.
Right. Exactly. Perfect. Okay.
And I loved your response to your daughter when she said, I hate you to you. And I feel like I use something similar. I usually say something to the effect of, well, that's okay. I still love you, even if you don't love me, and sort of don't add fuel to the fire. But some other sort of, when they don't say things in the nicest way, I guess, I usually ask them to redo it. So I'll say, can you say that in a different way? Or, can we try that again? Or something like that. Usually it's something, bring me that or something, can you say? And then immediately, Mom, can you please go get this for me and bring it to the table? And they say it in a nicer way.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think it's just, again, giving them the space to think about how they're requesting it, but then also give them the language to.
Yeah. And then catch them doing good. Right?
Yes, for sure.
So if they're doing something, you're like, woo, I think, that learning lesson took place. And now, they are like, I'll give you 5 minutes after you walk in, Mom, before I show you stuff. You've got to praise that action because that was learning. They learned how to do it now so that it works out for both of you. So give praise for that.
Especially if it's organic.
Yeah.
I noticed you did this the other day. That's really,
Or right at that moment. I mean, we're always talking about how do we build our children's confidence and resilience. It's those moments. They are so proud that they're being recognized for an action that they did and something that they improved on, right? Really important to always, you're a great kid, you're awesome. Yeah, those are great words. But if you attach it to actually an action, that's much more meaningful. So they will hear that, giving someone space or asking nicely, will you please get this for me, Mom? That, gets attention, and that also is looked upon well, right? Or else, sometimes they just to get your attention because there's no other way to get your attention, and they've been modeled, okay, that they only get your attention when they're behaving poorly. They're going to behave poorly unknowingly because that's the only way they really get your attention, right? So we're going back to like temper tantrums. But remember, there's toddler temper tantrums, there's teenage temper tantrums, there's adult temper tantrums, right? So it's not just in your relationship with your child, it's in all of our relationships. So, just learning to step back and be curious about the situation and take the more generous view of it. You know, I call it the positive reframe. Dr. Becky is calling it the more generous interpretation, but it's all about the same thing. And how do you get there? You rewire your brain. You practice gratitude every day because our brains are very neuroplastic. It can remold itself. Even if you've had 30, 40 years of, you know, the first thing that you snap to in any situation that's not pleasant is a negative interpretation of it. You could step back, take a breather, and go, okay, what was this really about? And that person, you know, the person that I was speaking to or my child or my partner, they said that. Was it really meant for me or was it out of, you know, something going on for them? Why don't we take the generous interpretation that there's something going on for them, right? How can I help you? Or I'm sorry you're feeling that bad. What's going on? Okay, open the door. Don't shut it on them and don't, you know, go head to head with them. Like you said something mean, I'm going to say something meaner. Yeah, that's getting all of us in a great place.
Oh, yeah.
Not really.
Nobody listening to this podcast should think that I do not respond with a sarcastic remark every now and again.
Yeah, I do too.
That's my first inclination.
Right. But I did find that in practicing gratitude, and what do I mean about practicing gratitude? You wake up, you pop your eyes in the morning. What are 3 things that you're grateful for? Okay. And they should be, you know, really quick. You don't have to think about it. Like for me, a sunny day, I'm always grateful for a sunny day. I love sun. You know, the gray days really kind of knock me for a loop. Always grateful for my family and my dog, even though my dog has not been best behaved this week. But that's what unconditional love is, right?
Yes.
And then before you go to bed, come on, 3 things that you're grateful for. Wow, so you've practiced gratitude twice a day. And if you do it for 7 days, that's 14 times in 7 days. How do you make a habit? 21 days of doing something. Try it. It does work. I've done it. It has helped me reframe my situation. And it kind of a built-in empathy or compassion for the person that I am interacting with. Right? Because it doesn't always come out great, but I don't have to go, they're doing it to me, they're doing it at me, they're, you know, there's spears going at me. They're having a bad day.
Yeah.
They have some stuff that they have to work through. Maybe I can be generous and not add to their burden for that day.
Yeah.
And maybe as parents, we cannot add on to the burden of guilt for our children and the self-negative talk.
Yeah. So maybe we leave some homework for our listeners here. Try this approach the next time your kid says something and tell us on our social media channels how it went.
Yes.
And maybe what your response was.
Absolutely.
And we'll share some good ones.
Yeah. I love it, Christina.
Okay.
All right. So we're looking for some responses from you all. Like, what was a tricky situation you dealt with your child? And how did you maneuver yourself around it and turned it into something positive and maybe a lesson?
Yeah.
So we look forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
Thank you.
See you next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye.